Your phone buzzes. Someone you know has died. You read the message twice. You don't know what to say. So you type 3 words, then you delete them. Then you type a heart, then you delete that too. You settle on thinking of you, and you hit send, and some small, ancient part of you feels like that was the right thing to do. But it wasn't etiquette that made you do that. The real answer is far stranger. That impulse is at least 100,000 years old, and it was already fully formed before your species had cities, before it had writing, before it even had what most people would call language. Start in a cave in northern Iraq. The site is called Shanidar. In the 1950s, an archaeologist named Ralph Selecki uncovered a set of Neanderthal skeletons buried deep inside it. One skeleton, known as Shanidar 4, was surrounded by clusters of ancient pollen. Selecki proposed something radical for the time. He suggested the body had been laid to rest on a bed of flowers. Newspapers loved it. They called it the flower burial. Was a Neanderthal mourned with a bouquet 50,000 years before the first funeral flowers we know of today?
Later researchers pushed back hard. Some argued the pollen could have blown in or been dragged into the cave by burrowing rodents. That debate is still not fully settled. But here's what almost no one disputes anymore. The body itself was placed there deliberately. It was not scattered by scavengers. It was not left where it fell. Paleoanthropologist Eric Trinkas, who spent decades studying Neanderthal remains, argued that the pattern at Shanidar was too consistent to be accidental. Bodies curled into specific positions, bodies set into shallow pits dug into the cave floor. That takes effort, it takes time. And in a world where every hour spent digging is an hour not spent hunting, that effort means something. Now, travel forward tens of thousands of years to a site in modern-day Russia called Sungir. Here, archaeologists found 2 children buried head-to-head, wrapped in clothing sewn with roughly 10,000 ivory beads each. Each bead took hours to carve. That means one burial represented thousands of hours of human labor poured into people who could give nothing back. No food, no defense, no offspring yet. Just love, or something close enough to it that we still recognize it 40,000 years later. Why would a small band of hunter-gatherers, people constantly on the edge of starvation, spend that much time on the dead?
This is where the story gets stranger than it first appears. Archaeologist Paul Pettit, who has spent much of his career studying the origins of human burial, argues that early treatment of the dead wasn't purely emotional at all. It may have started as something closer to problem-solving. A body left to the open attracts predators. A body left to decay inside a shelter spreads disease and unbearable smell. Burial, in its earliest form, may have begun as pest control and hygiene. Practical, unsentimental, a survival decision, not a spiritual one. But something happened along the way. The practical act of removing a body slowly became a stage for something else. Groups began adding objects. Red ochre pigment, which took effort to source and grind, shows up again and again in ancient graves across 3 continents. Shells, traded from hundreds of miles away, turn up on skeletons buried nowhere near an ocean. Tools, too fine and too new to have been used, are left untouched beside the dead. None of that is required for hygiene. None of it stops decay or scares off wolves. It only makes sense if the people doing it believed the dead were still, in some sense, present, still owed something. Here's the twist that most people never hear. You might assume that this kind of ritual required a big brain, language, culture, us. But surprise, in 2013, deep inside a South African cave system called Rising Star, cavers found a chamber packed with bones belonging to a previously unknown hominin species. Paleoanthropologist Lee Berger and his team named it Homo naledi. Its brain was roughly the size of an orange. And yet, the bones were found in a chamber so difficult to reach that researchers still debate how they got there at all. Berger's team proposed something almost impossible to accept at first, that this small-brained, pre-human species may have been deliberately placing its dead in that chamber again and again over generations.
Many scientists remain skeptical. The debate is loud and it is far from over.
But if even part of it holds up, it means the instinct to do something with the dead, to mark their passing, to remove them from the world of the living in a particular, repeated way, might not belong to smart humans at all. It might be older than intelligence as we define it. It might be something closer to a reflex. And that reflex doesn't start with hominins either, if you look closely enough. Primatologist Barbara King, who studies grief across the animal kingdom, has documented chimpanzee mothers carrying the bodies of dead infants for days, sometimes weeks, grooming them, refusing to set them down. Elephants have been observed returning to the bones of dead herd members years later, touching the skulls with their trunks in a way they touch nothing else. None of these animals write eulogies. None of them believe in an afterlife that we know of. But something in them recognizes absence. Something in them refuses to simply walk away. So maybe the question was never really when did humans start burying the dead? Maybe the better question is, when did a much older, much wider instinct in the animal kingdom get wrapped in beads, ochre, and stories and become something we now call a funeral?
Think about what that means for the version of grief you know. The suit you wear, the casserole you bring to a grieving neighbor, the awkward line at a wake where you shake a stranger's hand and say, "I'm so sorry for your loss." None of that is arbitrary modern etiquette handed down from a rule book. It's a thin, recent layer sitting on top of something animal, something that predates spoken language, something that was already there in a cave in Iraq 50,000 years before anyone taught you what to say. That's also why the silence afterward feels so unbearable. Humans aren't just uncomfortable with death because it's sad. They're uncomfortable with the absence of ritual around it. Strip away the funeral, the flowers, the eulogy, the black clothing, and you're left with something that feels deeply wrong, even if you can't say exactly why. Ancient humans seem to feel that wrongness too, and instead of ignoring it, they built an elaborate answer to it, piece by piece, grave by grave, over tens of thousands of years. Consider what you actually do the next time someone close to you dies. You don't just process the loss privately and move on. You gather. You bring food, the same way your ancestors gathered around a fire and shared what little they had. You touch the people around you more than usual, a hand on a shoulder, a long hug, physical contact that says something words can't. You tell stories about the person over and over, as if repeating them keeps some part of that person intact. Every one of those behaviors has a mirror in a burial site somewhere on this planet, buried under thousands of years of dust.
Even the smallest modern gesture carries the weight of that older story. When you leave flowers at a roadside memorial for a stranger you never met, you are doing almost exactly what someone may have done at Shanidar. When you save a voicemail from someone who died just to hear their voice one more time, you are doing what someone at Sungir did with a bead worked by hand for hours. An object that serves no purpose except to say, "You mattered, and I am not ready to let that go." So the next time your phone buzzes with news like that, and you sit there typing and deleting and typing again, know this: you are not failing to find the right words. You are running an ancient program that has almost nothing to do with words at all. It was built long before sentences existed, in caves and camps and river valleys, by creatures who had no concept of religion, no belief system to lean on, and still chose, again and again, to stop, to kneel, and to do something for a body that could no longer do anything for them. You still don't know what to say when someone dies. Neither did they. So instead, you show up, you sit with the discomfort, and somewhere underneath the heart emoji you almost sent, 50,000 years of the exact same impulse is quietly doing the talking for you.